Sea Valley MPO Policy Board to order. I am calling the meeting to order today for the record in order to preside over the election of a temporary chair to serve as chair for today's meeting. So I'll take nominations for chair at this time.
Andrew, I hate to do this because I have to leave early, so I apologize in advance. Commissioner Sanchez, do you have
Sure.
to leave early?
No, I don't have to leave early, so I can,
Okay.
I'll be glad.
Okay, I make a motion for Commissioner Sanchez to serve as chair for this meeting.
Is there a second?
Second, Merrick.
All righty, thank you very much. We'll go ahead and have the vote for that. Trustee Merrick?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson-Burek?
Yes.
Mr. Chavarria?
Yes.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Yes.
Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez, are you able to hear me?
Yes, and I vote yes on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor. New Mr. Chair, the motion passes. You are now our chair for today's meeting.
Thank you, Andrew. And then I guess the first order of business will be to have a motion to allow Mayor Hernandez to participate telephonically.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Johnson-Burek and a second by Trustee Merrick. If there are no comments, I'd ask for a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Trustee Merrick?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson-Burek?
Yes.
Mr. Chavarria?
Yes.
Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
All right, very good. All right, with that, then we'll move on to our agenda. So our next order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If y'all will join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will ask as just a quick question, Andrew. I know that we've already voted on a couple of items. Do we need to still have a roll call to determine quorum?
No.
Okay.
Let's not do that.
Okay. Well, then we'll move on. We'll move on now to the conflict of interest inquiry. Are there any members of the board that have any conflict of interest on today's agenda? No, I'm not hearing any or seeing any. Very good. Then we'll move on to public comment. Are there any members of the public that are joining us for public comment? Not hearing or seeing any? We'll then move on to approval of the agenda. If I can get a motion, a second to approve the agenda, please.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any questions, comments? All right, if I can get a roll call vote on.
Yes,
the
Mr.
agenda.
Chair. Trustee Merrick?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson-Burek?
Yes.
Mr. Chavarria?
Yes.
Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
All right, we have approved the agenda. We're now on to agenda item number 6, which is the approval of the minutes from May 8th of 2024. If I get a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Merrick,
Second?
and a second by Trustee Johnson-Burek. Are there any changes to the minutes? Any comments, questions? All right, not hearing or seeing any. So if I can get a roll call on the approval of minutes from May 8th, 2024.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Trustee Merrick?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson-Burek?
Yes.
Mr. Chavarria?
Yes.
Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Very good. Thank you all. All right, we're moving on to our action items portion of the agenda. So we'll look at 7.1, Resolution 24-05, a resolution adopting the federal fiscal year 2025 to 2026 UPWP.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Andrew Ray on behalf of MPO staff. Just in brief, since we went over this in some detail at the May meeting, but the UPWP, or Unified Planning Work Program, is a 2-year planning document. It outlines the transportation planning activities to be conducted by MPO staff. It does so from the framework of a fiscally constrained budget, as the UPWP is also the dollar budget for the MPO staff and its operational activities. The current UPWP that we're operating under today is still the federal fiscal year 2023 to 2024 UPWP. That went into effect on October the 1st of 2022. The federal fiscal 2025 to 2026 UPWP must be adopted this month in order for us to stay compliant with the federal regs. The most dominant project that we are aware of for the 2025 to 2026 UPWP is the Metropolitan Transportation Plan work that is already started and will be ongoing for a little over a year to go. As far as the structure of the UPWP is concerned, unlike last time, where we significantly rearranged a lot of the line items within the UPWP, MPO staff is not proposing any significant line item changes for the 2025 to 2026 UPWP. I have to admit, I'm not going to recite the dollar amounts again today because I did that and they are unchanged, and I have to admit that is not what I expected. I did expect that I was going to receive updated FTA 5303 dollar projections for FFY 2025, but I did not. So what I did was I used the FFY 2024 dollar projections and projected them forward, as that is the standard practice to do in this particular situation, and it is normal and routine for the UPWP to have to be amended immediately after the start of the federal fiscal year. As it is a 2-year document, we went ahead and used the projected funding levels for federal fiscal year 2025 and projected those forward into federal fiscal year 2026. Again, it is standard practice for the dollar amounts to have to be adjusted at the October or November meeting of the policy board every year in order to reflect accurately what the actual allocations turn out to be. BPAC and TAC both recommended approval of the UPWP at their most recent meetings, and staff requests approval of the UPWP today. And I will stand now for any comments or questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any questions from the board? I think the only question I think was in the estimate that you provided. Will there, because it's just an estimate and in that nature, is there be any requirement to update in the future once you have a response on the FTA 5303?
We will, once we have those numbers, and in the past couple of years, DOT Transit Rail has gotten pretty good about getting us those numbers by August, but I'm going to wait and formally do it at the October policy board meeting, as that's the commencement, because we really can't amend the document while it's still pending, so we have to wait for it to go into effect before we can do any amendments. But it's normal for us to have to adjust dollar amounts. And I mean, even the FHWA dollar amounts that I have, while broadly speaking that's what it's going to be, there might be adjustments into the tens of dollars, so it may not be 44, it might be 54, something like that. So there will be some minor adjustments that have to be done regardless, and that's standard practice. We have to do that every year.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, then can I get a motion and a second to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor for approval of Resolution 24-05.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Trustee Merrick?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson-Burek?
Yes.
Mr. Chavarria?
Yes.
Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
All right, that resolution is approved. We're on to agenda item 7.2. It's Resolution 24-06, a resolution updating the Mesilla Valley MPO Title VI plan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would at this time like to introduce Mr. Dominic Loya.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Policy Board. So today we'll be talking about the actual changes that were made to the Title VI plan. So there were 5 sections added to the Title VI plan per NMDOT's requirements. We added Section 4, which is organization and staff responsibilities. Added Section 5, which is a primary program area and review procedures. Added Section 7, which is Title VI program management procedures. We added Section 9, limited English proficiency plan, and Section 10, which is external communications, notification to beneficiaries. The Title VI plan is on the MPO website under core documents. So in the organization and staff responsibilities section, it just basically outlines the Title VI coordinator's responsibilities, the development and implementation of the plan to ensure that all entities of the MPO area are compliant with the requirements, update the plan with any changes that come along, such as we're doing now, develop procedures for receiving, processing, investigating, and reporting of complaints, and establish procedures for resolving deficiencies of status. In the primary programs area and review, the two primary programs that we are responsible for here as MPO staff are planning and research. And this will be basically carrying out the planning activities as described in 23 CFR 450, and then any type of work that is done with member jurisdictions within the confines of UPWP for research. Basically, all the review procedures are in place within the Title VI plan itself. Program management and procedures. We have transportation planning process fully complies with all the requirements of Title VI, which you usually see on our agendas, as well as on the packets. The review of operational policies, procedures to ensure Title VI compliance. As I said, we review it every few years. Monitor the service equities of planning, data collection, and analysis for potential impacts on social, economic, and/or ethnic groups. And that is done every time we do a review. Monitor compliance with limited English proficiency to improve access and comprehension of the transportation planning process for individuals comprising of LEP populations. Whenever we have public meetings for our plans, we always have a Spanish translator there because Spanish is, of course, the predominant language, second language here in the Valley. And as for the limited English proficiency plan, it requires a 4-factor analysis, which is the number or proportion of limited English proficiency individuals, frequency of contact with the program, nature and importance of the program, and resources available. And as I said before, at any of the major public engagements, we always have a Spanish translator. All our documents are also translated into Spanish for the population around here if they need it. And then external communications. It's the dissemination of information via accessible printed and electronic media. The contents of the notification, as I said, the statement for your organization operates on federal programs without regard to race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. Then the procedures are outlined in the plan. And then identify procedures followed by members of the public to file a discrimination complaint against the organization. And the Title VI coordinator is Mr. Andrew Ray, and he handles all of our, if there are any Title VI complaints, he would handle them. BPAC did recommend approval at their last meeting, so did TAC. We are requesting the policy board approve the Title VI plan. I will now stand for any comments or questions.
Thank you, Mr. Loya. Are there any questions, comments? All right. Sir, I'll just say I'd never thought about on the limited English proficiency piece of it, and had just happened to go onto the MPO website and didn't realize that we had the ability to have the simple translation of both English and in Spanish. There's just the flags up there, so I appreciate it. I just, like I said, it's not, I think in our day-to-day, I've never even thought about the translation services on the MPO, so thank you for that. Okay, if there are no questions or comments, I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-06.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Trustee Johnson-Burek and a second by Trustee Merrick. All right, if I can get a roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Trustee Merrick?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson-Burek?
Yes.
Mr. Chavarria?
Yes.
Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. All right, agenda item 7.3. This is Resolution 24-07. It's a resolution amending the federal fiscal year 2024 to 2029 Transportation Improvement Program, or TIP.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dominic Boyer for MPO staff again. So we did, since the last meeting, have 3 more tip amendments come in, and they're all for NMDOT. We do have one new project in this. This is LC 00550 for federal fiscal year 2024. This is for charging, and it's for a charging and fueling infrastructure grant program. This is a new project, as I said. So it'll be to put in charging stations in Vado and then one in Lordsburg. The one in Lordsburg is included on this because we are the closest MPO to that site. So the federal fiscal year 24 charging and fueling grant will be for $63,898,809 with a public-private partnership of $16,985,759 for a total project amount of $80,884,568. This project will have no effect on the current performance measures. We have LC 00330 for federal fiscal year 25. This is for I-10 bridge replacement. This is a funding change. It's to add additional funding of $8,350,000 for a total project of $26,260,000. And this project will affect performance measures 2, the state of good repair. Then we have LC 00380 for federal fiscal year of 2025, and this is for the I-25 capacity study. This is again a funding change to add in STIP flex funds for $1.5 million for a total project total of $6,348,199, and this project will have no effect on the performance measures. BPAC did recommend approval at their last meeting, as well as TAC. The MPO staff is requesting the policy board approve this series of tip amendments. I will now stand for any comments or questions.
Thank you, Mr. Loya. Are there any comments, questions on these projects? All right, not hearing or seeing any. If I get a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-07.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, trustees. We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 24-07. We roll call, please.
Trustee Merrick?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson-Barrett?
Yes.
Mr. Chavarria?
Yes.
Councilor McClure?
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez?
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Motion passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, now we're on to the discussion items portion of our agenda, 8.1, which is a report on the 2024 Mesilla Valley MPO Quality Assurance Review.
Mr. Andrew will be presenting this, Mr. Chair.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is Andrew Ray again on behalf of MPO staff to present on the QAR. I don't have a PowerPoint for this particular presentation today because I'm in the very happy position of being able to announce that we have no significant issues that NMDOT found in the QAR this year. Just to give a little bit of a background, the QAR, a quality assurance review, it's what would you call it? Not an audit, but a process analysis is probably process analysis that's done on MPO operations on an annual basis by NMDOT. Again, while it's not really an audit, it kind of has some characteristics of it and could certainly lead to very negative consequences and outcomes for this MPO if NMDOT is not satisfied with what they see. The only item of concern is the one that we have discussed in the past, but we have demonstrated improvement in this area, but it is in the area of the quarterly reports. We discussed those at length during last year's QAR when we were really having some serious issues with regards to that. While I don't want to say or promise that those issues have 100% gone away, it is fair to say that we are now back in attainment, and when we're no longer non-conforming as far as the the quarterly reports process is concerned. It is an item that we're going to have to continue to keep an eye on going forward, which DOT is aware of, MPO staff is aware of, so we'll continue in that vein. But I also would like to call attention, we do have Ms. Valerie Sherman from NMDOT here present with us today. She is the staffer who did do the on-the-ground analysis. So if she has if you have any, if she has any comments or if you have any questions that you would like to ask of her, I would invite you to do so at this time.
I don't know, Ms. Sherman, did you have any comments, or are there any questions for Ms. Sherman? Okay. I'm glad that we are, the nice thing is, like you said, we're under attainment, but I think it's just making sure that we continue with the compliance where we can.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right. That was it for that presentation, Mr. Chair.
So then we'll move on to 8.2, the transition update.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, this is Andrew Ray for the record on behalf of MPO staff. This is a presentation I think we've all been looking forward to getting kind of opening the curtain on where we are as far as the transition. I know a number of the members of the board who are on the executive committee are pretty familiar with everything that I'm going to talk about today, but this is the first time I'm able to present this information to the entirety of the board, so I'm very excited and happy to finally have the opportunity to do so. Just to go back to the past history just briefly here to start us off, but in early June of 2022, so 2 years ago, in fact, 2 years ago this past Friday, the Las Cruces city manager approached MPO staff and instructed us that he wished to see MPO staff begin a process to administratively separate from the city of Las Cruces. Since that time, MPO staff has been working diligently to accomplish this mandate. It has been obviously a bit slow going, but it is a process where it is a major paradigm shift, and it behooves all of us to take all of the due time necessary in order to be able to execute this transition correctly and appropriately. There are 5 different elements, 2 of which are very closely related to each other, that I'm going to discuss as far as giving this update today. The first one is the physical move of MPO staff to our new office space, then discussing the ongoing negotiations that we have for the memorandum of agreement, the joint powers agreement, then the pending employment agreement for the MPO executive director position, and then the timeline, not necessarily a timeline per se, but kind of the chronological steps wherein basically this transition will be accomplished. So, big drum roll, but we now have a finalized and executed lease for a new office space. It is at 201 North Church Street in downtown Las Cruces. That's the current BMO, former Bank of the West building in downtown. Our lease is for Suite B102, which is down in the basement, but it's nice and cozy down there, so we're perfectly happy with that. And my staff, they've all toured. It's fine. They can nod their heads vigorously. Yes, Mr. Chair.
Oh, I was going to say, it's a little cooler in the basement.
It is definitely a little bit cooler in the basement. MPO is scheduled to take possession of the office space on August the 1st of this year. Currently, the landlord is in the process of doing some cleaning, updating, et cetera, type of work to the space. That's on the landlord's dime. We are not paying for any of that work. There is, however, some necessary IT work, some IT infrastructure that has to be installed to be in conformity with the City of Las Cruces' requirements, as they will continue to be the fiscal agent role in providing the IT support. We will get into that later on in the presentation, but for as far as the office move is concerned, we will have to do some IT installation for that. In addition, MPO staff does not currently own a single bit of our own furniture. Everything that we have belongs to the City of Las Cruces, so we're not going to be able to take that with us, so MPO staff will need to, in the very near future, get started on furniture acquisition work. The other issue that we have immediately in front of us that I am working on right now is now the process, now that we have the lease, we need to acquire general liability insurance for our space and operations before we are able to move in. I am working on that right now. I have made some positive progress on that just within the past couple of days, so I am optimistic that we will get this done here and wrapped up in the very near future. Just as a little bit of an overall statement of intent, MPO staff, we do not intend to move into the space until it's actually ready for us. So I'm not gonna bundle our stuff out out of our current spot and then have us camp out on the floor for a couple of weeks until we get everything set up. So we're going to take our time with this. We're going to wait until we have the furniture. We're going to wait until the IT infrastructure is installed. We're going to wait until the space is ready for us. We will start gradually trickling in some of our non-essential items, like some of our storage records and things of that nature gradually after we take possession of the space, but we're not going to actually move and relocate until the space is ready. So I will keep the policy board up to date on that, because obviously you guys need to know where to find us. And it's entirely possible. I don't know. This is part of what has to be discussed with the city. We may be taking our phones with us, so we'll be keeping our phone numbers. We may not be taking our phones with us, and so thus we would be getting new phone numbers. Our email addresses, at least for the time being, are going to stay the same. More on kind of the reason as to why that is in a minute. But I will keep the board up to date on where it is that we are and where the board can find us. We will move before the formal adoption process for the MOA and the JPA are concluded. I did discuss that a little bit last month during my previous sort of prelude presentation. Force of circumstances have just separated those two, and due to the attractiveness of the space that we found, we just needed to go ahead and secure it. And if we've secured it, we may as well pay for it. Or if we're paying for it, we may as well go ahead and enjoy the space. So we are going to move out before the MOA and the JPA are concluded. Does anybody have any questions about, actually, I guess I should go back. Does anybody have any questions about the office move before I move on to the MOA and JPA updates?
Not seeing or hearing any.
Okay, very good. So Las Cruces City Administration has notified MPO staff that they have finished their internal review, pending a final review by the members of the city administration on the comments that they wish to provide back to MPO staff. I am already aware of the fact that there are still some issues that need to be ironed out in the MOA document between the city administration and the MPO. I fully expected this. This is not a setback. I don't want it in any way to appear like that's the case. This is just part of the ongoing negotiations that will have to take place. I am going to go over some of those issues in brief in my presentation, but as soon as we have the city's formal response to us, which I certainly anticipate before the end of this month, the executive committee will begin work on the MPO's, again, side of our response to the city's response as quickly as possible, and I hope to be able to move this forward relatively quickly so that we can get to the adoption process just within the next month or two. I hope by the time that the next time that the policy board meets in August, we'll have a fuller update to be able to provide on where we are moving towards concluding matters. So just to go over broadly the provisions of the MOA, again, the MPO will administratively separate from the city. That is kind of the whole point of this process. City of Las Cruces, as has been the express desire of this MPO from the beginning, as well as the other MPO member jurisdictions of the county and the town, City of Las Cruces is going to remain as the fiscal agent for the MPO. The MPO will pay an annual fiscal agent fee to the City of Las Cruces for the services that are provided. Provision is made within the language of the MOA to ensure that the federal limits on what we are allowed to pay as fiscal agent fee are adhered to going forward into the future. The MPO will have its own attorney, which we already have, insurance, which we are in the process of acquiring, and our own separate offices from the City of Las Cruces, which we technically are, we have the official formal conclusion of that process. The big item that has not really been confronted yet is that the MPO officer position will be reconstituted as the MPO executive director position and will be directly subordinate to the MPO policy board. And MPO staff will, which this is not really a change, but I'm notating it for form's sake, MPO staff will be directly subordinate to the executive director. As far as what the city will be providing for us, the city is going to continue to be the fiscal agent, so obviously the finance provisions will continue, the finance functions will continue to be provided by the city of Las Cruces. The city of Las Cruces is also going to continue to provide HR services for all members of MPO staff, including the executive director. The city will also continue to provide IT support, which we already discussed. That is also going to include the facilitation of our internet service within the space, although the MPO will be paying our own internet service fees to the provider. The city is only establishing that connection. The city is not going to pay for that for us. And the city will continue to provide fleet management services to the MPO as part of the role. However, this is where there are some details about the agreement where I do not want to say that there's conflict, that would be not the right word, but where we haven't come to final agreement about the details, about all aspects of this, particularly when it comes to some of the HR provisions that the city is bringing forward, as well as some of the finance. So those will have to continue to be ironed out on the executive committee level, so I'm not at liberty to go into much more detail as far as what is and is not being said between the parties, because strictly speaking right now, I don't have the city's formal response, so I don't know what they've shared with me already is actually going to be in their final document. There are a couple of other revisions, moving on then to the JPA as well. I got a little ahead of myself. The City of Las Cruces does not have any substantial comments about the JPA as a separate document from the MOA. And really, there are only two changes that we are proposing. One of them is actually relatively new. This was an idea that we had relatively recently. The first bullet point is we are going to propose changing the name of the MPO Policy Board to the MPO Governing Board. The reason why we're proposing to do that is governing really is a self-defining term, whereas we're still having some issues with the City of Las Cruces administratively when it was still called the Policy Board. At that time, the city had a host of subsidiary committees that were called Policy Review Committees, and city staff was still getting those kind of inherently confused as far as, so we would have some of our, the technical support for some of our MPO Policy Board meetings would get canceled out from under us without our knowing it at times when a city PRC had been canceled. So we also thought that it was appropriate to go ahead and continue to elevate the stature of this board to really define clearly who it is who's calling the shots here for the MPO, that it's not the staff, that it is the board. And yes, while the board sets policy, you still have to kind of define it, whereas if you say it's the governing board, you don't need to explain it any further. The other major provision to the JPA is there will have to be updated language regarding the transition of the MPO officer position to the MPO director position. Does anybody have any questions about the MOA or JPA negotiation process before I move on?
No?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving on to the employment agreement, again, as I alluded to a moment ago, this is the one big area where not a whole lot of work has taken place so far. The executive committee has engaged in some basic investigation of the necessary steps as far as implementing the transition of the MPO officer position. I anticipate that there will be not only a presentation on this particular aspect in consultation with Chair Corrin. There may very well be an action item on the policy board's agenda at the August meeting. So unfortunately, this is an area where there's not much more that I can say at this time, but does anybody have any questions or concerns before I move on?
Doesn't look like it's a.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew.
Then lastly, I just wanted to go through the timeline. I have gone over this a bit to some extent in the past, but I figure that this is a useful thing to reference again just for everyone's familiarity. Obviously, the step that where we are right now, we're closest to the physical move of MPO staff. At the same time, I fully expect that we will continue to move forward on the final adoption process. Before things can really get started as far as doing the final adoption before the board, the city administration and the MPO executive committee need to come to final agreement on the drafts for both the MOA and the JPA. Once that is done, then we will begin the process here to present those drafts of both to the MPO Policy Board for adoption. The JPA will go to all three of the member jurisdictions, the city, the county, and the town. The MOA will only go to the city of Las Cruces, as the county and the town are not going to be direct participants in the MOA. Afterwards, the JPA will have to go to the New Mexico Department of Finance Administration for final approval. That step is one of the reasons why we make the deliberate decision to separate the MOA and the JPA into two separate documents. We want to be able to maintain flexibility on the MOA for when it is that we come across, which I am sure we will. I'm saying it right here and now, well in advance of it being done. There's going to be something that's going to come up after the new MOA has been in operation for a while, where it's like, we need to change this. Guaranteed to happen. I guarantee it will happen. We want to be able to have the flexibility to do that without having to go through the whole process and having to send it to the state. So we're trying to save ourselves some time there. And then also the employment agreement will need to be executed and implemented for the MPO executive director. So I know that's kind of a lot to take in a relatively brief amount of time, but that does conclude my presentation, and I will stand now for any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Are there any questions? No, I think that was a pretty thorough update on all things JPA and move, and appreciate it. So
Thank you,
I
Mr.
understand
Chair.
I know there'll be some other potential action items coming up, so
There's
we'll look
going
forward
to be a
those.
couple, but we'll go more into at least some of the ones that we're immediately aware of at probably at next month's meeting.
Okay, very good. All right. Is there any other updates for the transition?
No, that was it, Mr. Chair.
All right, very good. Then we'll move on to 9.1, board updates. Are there any updates from any of the board members? Ooh. Very good. Then we'll move on to 9.2, NMDOT updates. Mr. Javaria.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. We'll start with the US 70 resurfacing project. It's started already. They're not quite ready to work on the main line yet, but they've been working on the roadside barrier. That project's going to continue for the rest of this year. It is night work. Some lane closures will be up during the daytime, but all the work will be happening at night. The US 70, our Main Street project, we're getting close to the halfway point. Once we switch traffic, hopefully in sometime in July, we'll see traffic. We'll see two lanes of traffic in each direction, and hopefully it'll move a lot better. Our landscape project, it'll be done next month. It's looking good. It's moving along. We do have a new project that bid last month. The bridge over Main and Valley Drive. It's a bridge preservation project. It hasn't been awarded yet. We don't have a start date yet, but it did let, and we do have a preliminary award on that. And then finally, we have our university project from 478 to 28. We're hoping it's going to bid here in July or August. And then hopefully we can get that project underway. I'll stand for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chavarria. Are there any questions for NMDOT? All right. We're a quiet bunch today. All right, then move on then to MPO staff updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two to give. First one is, as I already mentioned, we do not have, or alluded to, we do not have a meeting of the board in July, so everyone's on vacation for the month of July. The next time that this board will meet will be in August, and we will be meeting at the city of Las Cruces. This is the time of our annual switch, so all the meetings of the MPO Policy Board for the rest of the year will take place in the Las Cruces City Hall. in the city council chamber. The other thing that I want to do, even though she's not going to appreciate it, but today is Miss Becky Baum's final day here with us physically. She's transitioning some of the operations of her business, and while she is still going to be our transcription contractor, she is no longer going to be physically present at our meetings, even though she's still going to get to hear our lovely voices on a monthly basis. But I thought it was an appropriate opportunity for us to stop and say thank you to her for all of her many years of service thus far, and also her years of service to come. So,
Thank you, Becky.
and that's everything that MPO staff has today.
Thank you. All right, then with that, we'll go back to public comment. Are there any members of the public that are here for public comment? Yeah? Oh, okay. All right, then with that, we've reached the end of our agenda, so I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by trustee Merrick, and I'll second that motion. And so with that, if there are no objections, we'll call this meeting adjourned at 1:45 p.m. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Andrew.